Welcome everyone. This is map number 1 of a best of 1 here. ZvZ in Go for SC2 Monday. I hope you're all doing good. I am in a fantastic mood tonight. I haven't had a chance to cast for a couple of days, so assuming I can still remember the names of all the units and stuff like that, things should go pretty well. Spawning down in the bottom right hand position of Frost, we have got the pink Zerg player representing Vega Squadron, JonnyREcco. And his opponent to the top left, it is the teal Zerg player representing Dekar. It is TomikuS. These two, the biggest trolls of my life right now, because they've gone for pink and teal, which are two colours I find ridiculously hard to tell apart because I can't actually see the colour pink. It just looks grey to me. So it's very confusing, and in a mirror matchup, my brain is gonna melt. It's gonna be uncomfortable. Hopefully it won't dribble out my nose. But anyway, what can we be expecting from ZvZ on Frost? Early pulls are quite unlikely. It is a big map, and that means that all spawn positions are viable, and as all spawn positions are viable, you don't really know where your opponent's gonna be, so rushing out some lings, you've only got a 33% chance of heading the right way first. And that's not good odds when an element of surprise is all important. So absolutely no doubt that these two were going to go hatch first here. Perfectly safe to do. And everything was going to go, well, pretty swish. Moving forward, there's a couple of good builds that these two could be trying to utilize that are really in the meta at the moment. Firstly, there's the Roach Heavy style that's been getting more and more momentum, getting more popular. Just a big play. It's almost becoming more popular than Ling Baneling style play. On a really large map like Frost, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that because you've got so much time to prepare for any aggression coming at you. You can just happily sit there and defend up very nicely, double Evo chamber, put a couple of roaches, a spine and 2 queens, and Ling pressure won't hurt you. You can get roaches out in plenty of time. But secondly, there's so many good transitions from that roach heavy style. Firstly, you've got obviously just more roaches. That's a fairly effective strategy. You've also got the Hydra route, where you just sprinkle in some high DPS Hydralisks and enjoy the fun. You got the Infestors. Again, very, very nice. So lots of different builds can come off that. Then as well, we've got the much more well-rehearsed, a lot more usual Mutalisk style play. Lots of people been doing that. And also, there has been a bit of a resurgence of that very Ling-heavy composition that we've been seeing with the double upgrades into super fast Ultralisks. And the reason that's so cool is because in a Zerg army there really isn't that much that is effective at dealing with Ultras. It just isn't. And that makes it very challenging to try and combat it. So, Lings passing each other. JonnyREcco going to get the first little peek because he has kept control of the watchtower. I want to touch on this. Look where this Ling is actually positioned. In there, in the gas, makes it very hard to spot. Anyway, TomikuS coming in, Rico coming in as well. Both getting that first little peek of what's going on. But nothing terrifying, nothing scary. JonnyREcco opting for that spine crawler. Having seen the gas is being mined and also speed is on its way. This just says that, okay, my opponent definitely going to be doing some kind of aggressive play. With all of this gas coming out, that's either going to be roaches or some banelings coming. Either way, a spine crawler certainly is going to really help me and make sure that I'm safe. Especially when I've gone for a gasless opening myself. I need to be extra cautious. What this means though is Rico should end up getting a slightly better economy. Interestingly, TomikuS has now just taken a slight lead in the drone count. He's also getting his lair down exceptionally fast. And this is something that Rico, for the moment, hasn't actually been able to identify that the lair's coming. So this could cause Rico some problems, especially if we're going to get a very fast spire, which is highly likely because we've got all 4 extractors getting taken now. But it's not guaranteed. Rico wants to be keeping a good little eye on exactly what his opponent does, wants to scout things like that Baneling nest as fast as possible. Meanwhile, back at home, Rotaron, double Evo chamber, and the 2 queens complete a full wall off, making sure that Rico is entirely safe from any just pure Zergling aggression. Another thing worth noting is Rico is opting to spread a bit of creep forward. Something that not all Zerg players do choose to do, But REcco will get advanced notice of anything moving through, anything coming in, and so deciding that it's worth getting that benefit for him. And it's especially viable when he is going for some roaches, because that means that until speed is done, they're going to be a lot more mobile on this creep, and it really give him more option and more room to utilize those roaches to push things back. As expected though, TomikuS rushing up into those Mutalisks. Spire already a third done, and for the moment REcco doesn't have any response bar Queens to that. He does have the 1-1 missile attack upgrades coming down, but no Hydroden, and that's because his lair is considerably later than that of TomikuS's. TomikuS does now have a good option to try and catch REcco off guard, but since Spore Crawlers are really effective up against Mutas, it's highly likely that REcco will have plenty of time to mount a solid defense and get out a good number of Hydralisks to shut it down. And due to this wall off at the front, which I believe TomikuS hasn't actually scouted yet. I'm trying to find actually one of TomikuS's overlords to take a peek at this. But no, TomikuS does know that there is a bit of a wall off there. So these lings will struggle to be able to punch straight through. JonnyREcco now coming in with the scout, sees the spire, sees the infestation pit. Great snippet of information coming through. And now it's really up to REcco to decide how he's going to try and stop this. And just by getting a nice little roach block off there, the spine and the queen should be completely safe. As the spire has been scouted to, REcco will just add in a couple of spine crawlers, which he's already doing, knowing that when he scouted that spire, because there hasn't been any sign of any mutas yet, he should be completely safe with this timing of the spores. A couple of overlords will go down nonetheless, and there's nothing that JonnyREcco can do to stop that. But what I'm seeing now is really cool. TomikuS is transitioning off of the back of these 6 Mutalisks into swarm hosts. So those locusts are going to be slowly making their way across the map, going to be putting some pressure on REcco. And actually, swarm hosts are a fantastic response to roaches. There's no real splash available to deal with the locusts quickly, which allows them to work through an army like roaches incredibly efficiently and very cost effectively. So REcco needs to see this is coming and ideally not allow TomikuS to get out too many swarm hosts. Only 6 mutas on the field, so they're not too threatening. The queens and a spore going to be more than enough to deter any aggression. REcco slightly up in the timing of his third base, his drone count up by 6 as well, but TomikuS applying a bit of pressure, just being careful of these 4 queens which will easily shut down the mutas. But JonnyREcco is still completely blind to the fact that there are swarm hosts. And the longer this game goes on without REcco identifying that there's going to be this stream of endless free units heading towards him, the worse it gets. If there is a sizable group of swarm hosts out on the field, REcco is going to have a very tough time trying to stop that. In small groups, swarm hosts really are not threatening at all, because a big army can quickly focus down the locusts and push the ground. But up against, say, 10-12 swarm hosts, which is the amount TomikuS is rapidly approaching, those locusts have enough health and enough volume to actually just work through an army, never allowing it to make progress forward. A lot more roaches coming out for REcco at the moment. He does also have his Hydralisk den finished. But over at TomikuS's side, his swarm host count is rapidly rising, and JonnyREcco doesn't actually have any information about this. However, he's now being a bit more active on the map, pressuring forward, and with decent upgrades, he's going to be looking to cause some pain. The one giveaway that's potentially here, if REcco has been ultra observant, is the upgrades. The lings don't have +1 melee attack, so REcco's going to be sitting there thinking, okay, why would you get the +1 armor? But I haven't seen any roaches or anything like that. He should know something a bit suspicious is happening. Group of roaches rallying around, just making sure nothing scary is happening yet. 12 swarm hosts now on the field, although not burrowed up. Will probably burrow shortly, seeing the approach of the roaches. And JonnyREcco really needs to see that this is on its way. He's got burrow, he's got tunneling claws, but now sees the first wave of locusts. Couple of burrow roaches heading in towards the third base of TomikuS. But TomikuS has also secured up this bottom left-hand base, which was so stealthy, I didn't even see it. The 6 mutas actually doing a fairly good job of just getting a kill or two. It's not the end of the world, but it's enough to be a little scary. It's enough to just tip that resources loss balance in your favor. REcco now able to take down the third base. Shouldn't have any problem sacrificing these roaches to confirm the kill there. And this will lull REcco into a bit of a false sense of security. He's going to sit here and think, well, I've taken out his third, I'm a base up, everything's good. But what he doesn't know is this base down in the bottom left. It's allowing TomikuS to stay very level, actually ahead in the work account, and economically very level. When he's got a lot of free unit production, he can trade insanely cost effectively. TomikuS waiting now, needs to really bring that Overseer over to grant detection. Gonna lose the hatch yet again without actually cancelling, and that loses 300 minerals straight away. Both players opting to go up into Hive Tech. Interesting choice by REcco, going into Baneling Speed. And the reason this is actually quite a cool decision is because Locusts are light units. And this is probably the best strategy, in my opinion, to counteract the Locusts, is if you can get some great Baneling hits down on a group of them early on, and then push through in a decisive attack, that's when you can start looking to take down those swarm hosts exceptionally fast. TomikuS though, looking to diversify his army, get a bit more resilience up by getting the Greater Spire. Broodlords would be a great addition to his composition, because it's going to make it very hard for REcco to actually take everything out, because the Broodlords require a completely different composition to combat. However, 30 Banelings are now morphing in. REcco is approaching max out, he's aggressively posturing with these roaches, and the trouble for TomikuS is his Greater Spire is only half done. REcco's also now discovered this base to the bottom left, a massive scout, because TomikuS was getting a huge amount of his income from this base. REcco on the other hand, he's already up to 4 bases as well. These Mutalisks playing a bit of a brave game are going to lose that fight with the Transfusers, and as such, REcco should be able to slowly but consistently pick away at that hatch. TomikuS now going for an aggressive snipe of a couple of queens. Going to be able to pick a few off, and with the bow actually, REcco saves them. Nice play there, and also saves his hatchery. But what this has done is bought time for TomikuS, who now starts morphing in a handful of Broodlords. And it's going to be a lot tougher to try and contend with this, because REcco just steadily losing army to what is 3 units for TomikuS. REcco though, now moving more forward. The Baneling train has left the station and is aiming for some Locust. REcco is also sending a handful more roaches down to this bottom left hatchery in order to confirm that it certainly will die. But TomikuS counter-attacking very effectively, picking apart a couple of those spines. But REcco secures the hatch kill while keeping all of his hatches firmly up. Adding an Aspire of his own, JonnyREcco is catching up tech-wise. He's a bit ahead in overall upgrades, but only by a single armor, which isn't huge. But more importantly, I don't actually believe that REcco has seen the Broodlords yet. TomikuS continuing on with some nice harassment with the roaches for the moment. REcco definitely hasn't seen the Greater Spire, so has no way of knowing that's coming. But he's also doing a fantastic job of hiding these Banelings. This is not the biggest burrow Baneling hit ever waiting to happen. It's instead just a stealthy movement. REcco now just catching the edge of those Broodlords, and he's trying to exploit the fact that Broodlords are very immobile by going for some splinter attacks off to the side. TomikuS now getting ready to counterattack as well. A few roaches just coming through. Over to the right, JonnyREcco has a lot of roaches chasing down his opponents. But the Broodlords are still quite threatening. But luckily for REcco, he's got an exceptionally high number of Corruptors, which shut those down super fast. And with this now, REcco still holding on nicely. He scouted another stealthy expansion trying to come down from TomikuS. But by scouting that, it hasn't really shut down TomikuS as of yet. Because while he is losing a bit more in terms of the resources, he's still in a very comfortable spot. He's got those 12 swarm hosts out, and most of those resources lost came from the broodlords. And that arguably isn't something that TomikuS would have wanted to lose early on, but he'll get over it, and he should still be fine on the economy he's got, especially if this hatch at the 4th is able to be secured. So where does TomikuS go from now? The big thing, probably the biggest thing, is that he cannot afford to sacrifice more units as he did. But REcco, not going to be waiting for those opportunities for TomikuS to come through. He's got a lot of banelings. He wants to get the good connection on all these locusts. Wants to buy himself as much time. May even go straight for the swarm hosts. They're all clumped up and manually detonating the banelings. Could be huge. They're rolling through. The detonation's coming through the swarm hosts. Getting annihilated. Massive win there for JonnyREcco, who controls the skies with the superior corrupt account. Controls the ground with his Roach Hydra Force, and having dealt that devastating blow to the swarm hosts, has really spelled the end to TomikuS's relentless defense with those kind of never-ending waves of locusts. TomikuS will be able to buy himself a bit more time, but he's losing a lot of overlords now, and he's now starting to eat into his supply cap. He's not supply blocked yet, and he's a long way from it, but these corruptors, they don't care about no queens hitting them. They can cope with that. The overlords, on the other hand, really can't cope with taking this much damage. TomikuS going to have to remake a lot of those, which obviously eats up his lava and his ability to resupply. All the while, REcco just rallying across the map. He's in a commanding position now, going to be looking to keep that. A good group of overseers in position as well, just in case there's any burrowed things about. Nice big group of Hydralisks there. 3-3 upgrades done on both sides. But still the pressure coming through, the aggression coming forward. And JonnyREcco looks to be taking a firm lead in this game. He's expanded behind this up to 5 bases now. And TomikuS, while he's able to hold for the moment, is in a lot of danger of losing his 4th base. A mass group of changelings using to bug out the AI, preventing them from being able to run over, using the whole command there. The roaches fighting straight up against the Hydralisks, and while the Hydras do dish out a lot more damage, they're considerably more squishy. REcco has no choice but to pull back though. He doesn't have enough units in order to take down this base. He doesn't have enough to stop this push yet. And TomikuS is able to stay in this game, but REcco is still far ahead, about 40 odd supply. His work account is 30 above that of his opponents, and that's going to keep changing as more roaches keep attacking through. In the center, REcco doing some nice work, making sure that his opponent never, ever is able to get up enough units to actually try and stop stuff. But still, this is going to be a massive uphill battle for TomikuS. I'm trying to think if he does have any potential way back into this game, but the options are really limited for him. He doesn't have enough money or an economy to be able to keep this going. JonnyREcco just has a far better income. And with more money, he can trade cost ineffectively, but he's actually trading cost effectively. He now has a massive swell of units and is going for this. TomikuS knows that things are dire, pulls the drones, wants to be engaging up against this army, but there's nothing that can be done. And GG, after 26.5 minutes, JonnyREcco advances into the quarterfinals in what was a pretty epic ZvZ.